Welcome back to the PR Hotline, your first call for PR fixes. This season, myself, Maya, and Grace are diving even deeper into the real issues people in PR, social media, and marketing face every day. From client expecting overnight results to burnout, creative blocks, and everything in between. If you've ever sat there wondering, is it just me? It's not. These are the conversations we all need but rarely have. Each week, we're joined by a guest to talk through a real problem from the industry, breaking it down honestly, sharing what's worked for us, what hasn't, and how you can approach it differently. Then we'll dig into a campaign they've brought along, exploring the idea behind it, how it landed, and the lessons you can take into your own work. So whether you're listening on your commute, on a coffee break, or hiding from your inbox, we're so glad you're here. Let's get into season 2 of the PR Hotline. Today on the PR Hotline, we're diving into a problem that almost everyone in the industry has come up against: the ongoing divide between traditional and digital PR teams. Traditional teams focus on relationships, print coverage, and brand, while digital teams are driven by links, SEO, and online visibility. Both sides bring real value, but when they're working in silos, it can lead to clashing priorities and missed opportunities. Today, we're joined by Liv, who's worked across both worlds, to unpack what really sets them apart, why the divide still exists, and how teams can bridge the gap to deliver stronger, more joined-up campaigns for their clients.
So I'm Liv. I'm a freelance PR, marketing, influencer, a bit of everything now. Started out in traditional PR, so worked at a really small agency. I worked at a really big agency where I got some of the best experience and names on my CV. And then I went in to do a year at digital PR agency. And then I went in-house and got made redundant after 6 weeks. So that's how I ended up going freelance. So yeah, I'm now, 3 years yesterday, freelance. So yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. It's been a journey.
So you've had quite a lot of digital versus traditional experience in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So because of that, we've had a problem submitted to us about the divide between digital PR and traditional PR teams, and we thought you were the perfect person to answer it. So they've said that there's obviously still quite a lot of tension around priorities with digital PR teams, where they're focused on links, online coverage, whereas obviously more traditional is more media coverage, building relationships with journalists and kind of like reputation. They've said it's frustrating because it sometimes feels like we're working in silos rather than collaborating to create the best possible campaigns. How can we actually bridge this gap and start working together effectively to deliver better results for clients? So we've got some questions we're going to ask you today, and then we'll have a little chat about what your opinion of this is. So you've worked in both traditional digital PR. When did you, or is there a specific moment where you feel like you've noticed that divide between the teams?
Yeah. So I think I actually didn't notice it until I started to think about moving into digital. So the agency that I worked at was very, very, very traditional. Everything we did was for PR coverage and for brand awareness. So also to put into context in terms of what you've said there, so as a standard, we were expected to go and meet 3 to 5 journalists and influencers and events people a week. So like it was a week. It was actually really good fun. It was a lot on relationship building, more the traditional side of things. So it wasn't until I went and worked at a digital PR agency that I actually did really notice the difference. So obviously in the first agency I was at, we did influencer work, but that was as sort of as far as it went. We were really traditional. I walked into a digital PR agency, and that's when I realised it is a completely different ball game. So it was probably then that I really, really noticed the difference, opposed to it being a situation where I was working in traditional with the digital PR team. It wasn't until I was in it that I really, really noticed the difference.
Is there a specific element that you think is obviously the relationship building, but is there anything else that part of it that you think is really, really different? Because I feel like that's the most common thing is you don't spend the time and you don't build quality of relationships with journalists or other kind of people. Is there anything else that you've noticed that is a lot different?
Probably a quantity versus quality when it came to how we looked at results. So traditional was really about going and maybe landing 3 amazing bits of print coverage, whereas I walked into a digital PR agency and the whole process was different. It was about how you could get it out as far as possible, as far and wide as possible. and the way that it was done was really different. So I suppose when I worked at the traditional PR agency, we spoke to similar people all the time. We built relationships with journalists, or like I worked on a couple of brands that were localized in certain parts of the UK. So it was about going and building relationships with the local media there. Whereas I think I went into digital and it was about hitting a mass amount of journalists. And I actually think the way that media lists are built and the way that you target media in digital is a really great process. And I think there's lots to be learned in traditional in that sense. But then back to that original point, I think I felt when I was in the digital PR agency that the experiences I got to go out and meet journalists and attend events and build those relationships was something that I was like, the juniors, I felt a little bit were missing out on that. So there's probably somewhere in the middle of the two, which I feel like is going to be the general sort of conclusion of this whole podcast. There's probably somewhere in between the two where there's like the sweet spot.
Did you take any of those relationships into your digital career? Did it give you an advantage over people who had been digital from the beginning?
Yeah, I did take. I worked on a fashion brand when I was at the digital PR agency, and I had contacts that I took from my past agency into that that become your best friend if you need some understanding. So yeah, there was definitely relationships that I had crossed over. Or I suppose if you've taken a member of Cosmo out for breakfast, they will go back to the office and tell them that you work on this amount of brands. So then I suppose there's also the sort of whole awareness of the people on their team. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I think I do think it was one of the best skills that I was taught early on, was this like relationship building with press. And then I think you can do that by email. I think you can still do that, but I actually think there's massive amount of sort of skill that you get from going and meeting someone in person. And I suppose there are also skills that taught me to be better at presenting. I feel like at the age of 22, if you can go and sit in front of a journalist and spark up conversation for an hour, they're really good skills that are transferable to other parts of the industry.
I would agree with that. I feel like I've always been bad at answering phone calls and things like that, but I cannot stand answering phone calls, and I feel like if I'd been trained in the traditional sense where you're literally forced to journalists, I mean, it'd be fine. Like when a journalist will email me and be like, can you give me a call? I'll be like, yes, no.
I mean, in my personal life, I don't answer. I hate answering the phone. So like, it isn't a skill that's transferred into any other part of my life. But I do think there was a skill that is learned specifically, like if you're sat in front of someone, or I suppose another big difference, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, was that a part of a traditional PR agency, so if you were looking after a beauty brand, for example, would be doing an event. So then you've got the pressure of having 10 journalists in front of you and a client that you're trying to manage a room. And like, they were skills early on that I feel like that being able to hold yourself in a room full of people and also there be a client there, I think was an invaluable skill, which I mean, you guys might say, you got to do that in your own experience, but I think that part of my journey and that part of my career came from the traditional agency. But the lady who owned the big PR agency that I worked at, she was also a big driver. I don't think it was just a traditional thing. She was a really big driver about relationship building. That was a massive part of what she felt was important. And I think I still take press out now, even though I'm freelance. I'll say to someone like, so if you've worked on a really big piece, like if it's something that's taken 6 months to get over the line, it's then nice to go out and celebrate and make that relationship.
This is a random question. If I awkward that initial meeting with a journalist,
I have always gone on the basis that you should probably go and try and find something in common. I've never sat down with journalists and been like, I've got this client, this client, this what working on. I found it some of the best journalist contacts I've made. One of my best friends and bridesmaids at my wedding was a journalist. I'm sorry. She went to Condé Nast Traveller. Me, her, and my friend Alice went for a press breakfast, and we've been like best friends ever since. So like, I've always found it really beneficial to go and find something in common and not
I don't want to
make it.
go to there and just I've got 5 stars.
I know lots of people that don't work that way. I know lots of people that are very efficient that will go in and be like, let's tick off talking about this, 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 and this, and like that works for them as well. But yeah, I would never sit down and be like, oh, so I'm working with this person, this person. And it comes up naturally. It really does come up naturally. Like, I think you both said we know why there, but I've also been to press breakfast where I've said, we've spoken like really briefly about work and then gone away and said, oh, I'll send you an email with what we've got on.
I remember telling me about how they'd been like having like wild like bar, like going out drinking with journalists.
Yeah.
Is that actually what happens sometimes?
Can I just say, I've done karaoke in Soho on a Monday, with a client?
With a client or
Well, this was with a client. So obviously my crossover here comes, I'm client services.
yeah.
So I'm not talking to journalists, but I am absolutely talking to clients and the big...
You're doing the same thing as we would do with
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. And the struggle I always had with the delivery teams was not the PR teams. They love to go out for, for the breakfast and the drinks. But a lot of the other teams, the issue we always had was explaining to them, if you build the relationship now when everything's good, that person is going to defend you internally when things are bad. You're making your life easier. Like, you're setting yourself up to fail if they don't like you as a person. And so, that has turned into big old night outs with clients. And
I just didn't know whether there was like a boundary that ends up getting crossed if you end up getting
maybe it's all of it.
Yeah. The same boundary when you have one of your best friends become a bridesmaid. No. I think it depends. I think there's no like official line that's like, this is inappropriate. There probably is lots of things, but there's also events that you go to where you're drinking or like going out or whatever it is for journalists. I think it probably depends on what nature of the relationship is, but I'd say you'd start with a breakfast on straight in for a glass of wine. But then I suppose like I said, like it's no different to going to an event, is it? Having a glass of champagne with someone or a glass of someone at an event. I think it also depends probably like the client servicing side of things. The business editor at the FT probably isn't interested about calling around Soho, whereas like there's probably other journalists that are a bit more fun or a bit more, I don't know, if they're reviewing hotels or bars or like whatever it is, there's also a sense then that
they want to see the experience.
Yeah, opposed to like the FT business. Like I'm sure not all clients are happy. Well, they had karaoke night in Soho sounds.
Well, this was a client who I did again start with the breakfast once a month. It was a coffee, and then I got the budget signed off to upgrade to breakfast, and then it was lunches. And I mean, this was an 18-month relationship build, and I left that agency 9-10 months ago, and I still see this client. I'm still going for drinks with him. I'm still in contact with him, and he's moved on from that company. That he's now somewhere else, and he's still talking to me. So I think this goes into build those relationships with journalists on behalf of the agency you were working at. Really, you were building them for yourself. You've taken them into your freelance work. And for me, it's the same in client services. You build those relationships, you take them with you, your little black book of contacts.
Yeah, I think it's the point on networking, and that's what I was saying about the woman who owned the really big agency I worked at. It was all about networking, and that skill set for me is completely and utterly invaluable. I think that is something that anyone in what we do should have should be out doing that, whether it's meeting friends that work in agencies, whether it's meeting journalists, whether it's meeting clients, like that is literally what we do, like bread and butter. And I think
on the other hand of things like that is I do see the point of view from a digital PR perspective where it would be more difficult to do that kind of stuff. I feel like when I've been a junior and I've worked in, I've had so much work and so much pressure on myself to just get as many things out as possible that I've never been able to do that thing where I've been able to talk to journalists more. I'd say probably the started to build relationships was when I worked on like Misguided up a little thing, and it's like a company that journalists recognise and wanted to have that relationship with me so I could give them more stuff. But other than that, but other than that, I found it difficult from a digital perspective because it's hard to, and as a freelancer as well, it's hard to for a client to look at an invoice and be like, spent like 4 hours talking to a job.
No, but I think to the point about like Misguided, I think I also worked on Five Guys, and part and parcel of the job is taking people into Five Guys to go and try the food. So that will forever like one of my favourite clients I worked on. But like so I suppose probably back to that, the more original point is that traditional has a focus on that, which is where I think that's where the biggest difference is. Except for how you probably quantify results, that would be where I would say.
So we've talked a lot about relationship management with journalists across traditional and digital PR, the differences there. I'd quite like to touch on influencer management, managing those relationships, managing that kind of work. How do you think that fits? Does it fit more naturally within traditional, digital, bit both?
I think originally it was an add-on to traditional, so depending on what sort of account you're working on. Obviously things have changed also in the time that I've worked in sort of the industry, because when I first started we did a lot of gifting and then moved on to Paid, and then Paid has now completely become its own entity. But like, we did paid work in the scope of work as traditional. For example, we worked on a shopping centre client, and a big part of it was obviously it was all localised media, and then it was getting the right press in the local area to sort of support whatever campaign we were working on. I don't know now, because when I was at Rise, it was really as people started using influencer work for press stories, so then it changed into that sort of nature. And now talent is, I would say, its own whole thing within a marketing strategy. So I think I would say it used to fall into traditional, but that was because it's probably my own experience in it. I think digital have taken it to use it really cleverly in terms of creating press hooks. And now I'd say it's its own entity, because the budgets are completely different to what they were 7-8 years ago. It's a completely different ball game. There's also, depending on what brand it is, the fact that then, I don't know, if you were to work on Google, it's not just working on a campaign with Google, it's then that you are not allowed to be seen working with Apple. Like, it's a whole different ball game, I think. To when I started in the industry, where it was an add-on sort of to what we did as a piece of work.
It's a full campaign just by itself. So we were doing some digital PR work with Playful Promises, and they said that they had Mega Fat Enhancer doing a collection, and obviously they had a traditional PR agency, us as the digital PR agency, and I felt like we all worked really, really well together.
Oh, got it.
I mean, so I've had some experiences where it's hard, but we worked really well together because how it does set up like the interviews, so they would take their kind of interviews for the publications that they to go to, and then they just let us completely gave us free rein on where we could go to with the answers to questions. And I just felt like that's like the ideal scenario. If something was to happen, I'm glad I'd gone into that conversation and they were really, really kind of like standoffish, like interact with us, which I would probably say 70% of the time happens. What would you say from like your point of view as somebody on that other end? Anything that I could do to make it like easier? I always go into conversations with traditional PR agencies and I'm always like, I'm here as a support. Like, I do not want to like overlap. I don't want to try and like what's the word? Uphand something.
The phrase I got from someone once was, I don't want you to mow my lawn. And I thought, if someone mowed my lawn, I'd be so grateful.
No, but that is the other, I think the way that you just said is completely the right way of going into it. When I worked at a traditional PR agency, things might have really changed now, or maybe my experience changed when I went into digital. I think there would have been an idea of what is it that you're actually here to do. I think because like is it a traditional agency, you still want to get online coverage, so then how do you differentiate between what you're doing, what they're doing? I think, like you said, the right way is that we're here as sort of an extension of the team and an extension of the client, all working for the same client. I think as long as you really, really iron out, I can't remember officially the question was, I think as long as you really iron out who's doing what on the campaign, where you can work together, because I think this is the other big issue is that we do this, we do that. I think it's good to outline that, but then so much of it is crossover. Like if you've got contacts at OK Magazine, or there's someone you want to go to AM Magazine, and I've also got a really good contact there, whose is the best one? How can we work together to land, if it's print, if it's online, if we're getting something on their Instagram account, if it's a celebrity partnership, like just think working together with an idea of we're owning this, but like where can we cross over in the middle? And I think from a digi point of view, probably just that if you're going into traditional PR agency and you don't think that they've worked with a digital agency, I suppose it's just a really clear, this is what we're looking.
Just say things like, I don't know, but that's been my experience. They're like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this kind of thing? And I guess we do have different goals at the end of the day in terms of what we want from that interaction with a journalist.
I think there's a job from the client to outline to both agencies what you want from them, or like whether it's a client servicing team from one of those.
Like one of the most difficult relationships I had was with one of my best clients, and it was one of those full suite, we're doing everything with them, and the PR was the real problem child, because they had an in-house traditional team who did not understand digital. Their head of PR had been an ex-journalist, I think. So really come from journalism to traditional. They made us have like a shared Google Doc of all of our links on a weekly basis. We'd update the links and they'd go through with a red marker and highlight the ones that they claimed came from their relationships.
Yeah.
So we'd do like weekly reporting and say, this is what we achieved. And they go, no, but they'd provide no evidence that that was their link. And then it was a whole back and forth. I'd have to go, well, actually, this is the email chain that we sent. So it's actually our link. And then I'm spending hours of billable time arguing over like 2 links, just a constant back and forth. And it was then turned into, oh, well, we want to own Valentine's this year, so you can't do anything Valentine's related. Great. What am I doing in February then? Because journalists only want to hear about Valentine's. You're not allowed to touch our influencer relationships. That's traditional only.
Yeah.
What a waste.
Yeah.
And so it was really tough, I think, because it was I was having great relationships with these heads of departments. And then I think in the end had to go like above their head and have someone more senior and say, look, this is a problem for us. And it's just not, again, client services perspective, it's just not fun having to have that argument with someone when we don't want to get you in trouble. You don't want to get us in trouble.
At the end of the day, everybody wants to succeed.
Exactly. Do you think, I don't know, from your point of view, this is where those like harsh link KPIs make it difficult as well? Because I think, I would say if you were the digital team and I was the digital team, we've landed an amazing bit of coverage on, I don't know, Cosmo about whatever campaign we're working on. I wouldn't pick hairs on who had claimed that, because there's probably a little bit in terms of relationship building that I've done in terms of they know the brand. They know the brand in the first place, but you've gone and you've worked on the campaign. I wouldn't personally split hair. I know some clients would, but then with a brand like that, their traditional PR team will be doing the influencer trips, the influencer management, the gifting, the seeding. They will be working on the likes of, they need to be in all of the Christmas gift guides, presents for girls under 18 or 16. So like there is a place for both. But I do think this is where these like really hard link KPIs make the digital PR teams. I don't know how else you do KPI, but we work on a value of a positioning of a brand in a publication, that is something that I believe we KPI against, is the fact that I can say I've been in the Times, or like, do you know what I mean? There's also that part of it which is all about the association between a client and a brand, whereas I feel like digital it's got different metrics to make it successful.
So the other side of that, I know I've had this situation where you've hit your link targets, you're really pleased, you've achieved that 25 links in the month, and they turn around and go, well, it's the Daily Mail, I don't really want to be in there. I was aiming for the Financial Times or things like that. And it's kind of, you complain about clients who care too much about volume, and then there are also clients who care too much about like who don't understand what digital is, who don't understand email authority, who don't get that actually you've hired me for digital PR, and from a digi perspective, this link is more valuable than the one you actually wanted. Talk to your traditional team about that one you wanted. That's not my job.
One of the things that I've done since being freelance, and every time I do it, I'm like, God, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here. I will ask a client specifically that I'm doing more and more sort of personal publicists or PR with people. So I will say to someone, where's your dream to land? Like, where is that place? Is that the Times? Is it, got a wedding planner? Hers was the Tatler Black Book, and then it was the Times. And she's a luxury wedding planner, so that it's an association with the right sort of people that she was interested in terms of where those readers exactly, or her clients are potentially going to be reading, were those at top tier publications. So like that's one of the things I really try to outline at the beginning, and then say to people, okay, in the meantime, we're going to work on a steady amount of coverage, like depending on whether that's digital, online, whatever it is. But in the meantime, I will spend 6 months chipping away at that relationship at the Times, or waiting for the right opportunity. But that same wedding planner, she's based in Henley, and we got her a full feature in their like local magazine that goes to everybody in the Harry's doors.
It's good for business.
So good for business. And she got named one of the Times best luxury wedding planners this year. Wow. But she would also say there was absolute value in a double page spread that went through every single door in the local area. So like there is a part of it where I will say to people, as much as Tatler was one of her targets, so was Henley Life. And that was one of her, she will say it was one of her most successful pieces of coverage that she's had. So there's just a world where it both exists. But I think to your point, outline as a traditional agency, like where are those hitters? So that especially if you're working with a PR team and there's big name boss or CEO or founder, where is it that they want to be profiled while you work on all the other stuff in the meantime? I would say that's how I go about it. But like I said, every time I take on a new client, I'm like, where do you want to be? And they're like, here. And I'm like, oh God, but it isn't. If that's what I show value in terms of the press breakfast or taking a client, taking the journalist out for lunch, if it's from the Times, that's all working towards that goal. And that might take 6 months, it might take 3 months, it might take a year.
If I could go back, I would go back into a traditional route. Because your day to day,
it's not all like that.
Not like interesting than mine. I think I fell into digital PR in a random way. I didn't even I did like one seminar about like PR course kind of thing. So it's definitely something that I fell into. But I would 100% go back and do a more traditional like influencer route. And I just find sometimes, especially at the moment with how harsh KPIs are in digital PR, it's just not enjoyable.
Are you pushing back on a link KPI? Is that still how a client would come to you and say?
The biggest thing that I've been able to get changed with a lot of clients at the moment is having annual KPI rather than monthly KPI.
Yeah.
I think having a monthly KPI for digital PR is quite difficult with how things go, and obviously the volume of
active, depending on what comes on, or like what time of year it is.
And a bit more traditional, you can, like I said, like build those relationships. I feel like I'm so on the edge of a client, kind of thing. I want to.
That's changed. I think it is traditional, but like now I'm working with actual people who want like personal sort of PR. That's a really interesting route because you basically get to look at their story or their business and say, this is interesting. As a reactive point of view, you're interested in this in this way. But then it's also going and crafting a story. And then if you see it in Times or you see it, this is where I think if you did a campaign and you got 100 links, is the equivalent to me opening up a double page spread in the Times and seeing it. Like that is my success in terms of, not for everyone, like I said, but for me, that is where I'm like, that is my moment where I'm like, I've done all right.
I still remember seeing my first, because I got into PR as a data analyst, and I remember seeing my first like piece of work in, I think it was, okay, maybe not my first, but my first kind of big magazine moment, which was Harper's Bazaar.
Yeah.
And it was so weird. No, my name's not there, but I know that was my work. Great feeling. I still think it was years ago, like 3 years ago, and I still sometimes look at that piece.
Yeah, I 100%. But like, I know that isn't everyone's goal of what they want. And I was talking to my mother-in-law yesterday, and we opened the Times, and that wedding planning client was in a piece about weddings in the Cotswolds. And my mother-in-law was going, so did she write the piece? And I'm like, no, like, there is some misinformation about that. And I really do understand that is not success for every single client. However, I think you would find a very small group of founders or business start, like someone that started a business that wouldn't open if they saw their story in the Times and go, wow, that is a real moment for us. Like, I know that on the other side, you can't look at the direct impact of it or like whatever it is, but like still that is a moment. And I freelance for a really good friend of mine owns an interior PR agency, and like in my opinion, they're like the cream of the crop when it comes to interior. And like if you think about the product that they're selling, so if it was the sofa, they pay a lot of money to go out and photo shoot and shoot it in an amazing location and to make it look beautiful. And for most part of their clients, seeing that in Earle deck in a full glorious, amazing print piece of coverage, that's where that product needs to sit. Or like it's like perfect if it's also on like top sofas for like a green room or whatever. Amazing. But in terms of like the money that those clients are spending on the photo shoots to make their products look beautiful, that needs to sit in print in my opinion. And like that's where this is all, there is also value in that side of it. I feel like I'm really beating the but I think there really is a world where like if you put those two things really and properly together and sat digital and traditional teams, I think there's a world where it all could work really, really well.
If you had 3 tips to give somebody that is trying to bridge that gap between traditional and digital PR, what would they be?
In terms of like if there were 2 people, like a traditional and a digital PR team, like what would I say to them both? I would say sit down and have a conversation about what you both want out of working together, and get the client servicing teams involved. Get the client involved if that's also a possibility. Get the client to outline what they want for both of you from results and the way that you're working together. Agree with the fact that the common goal is to do well for a client. I think that's the thing. You are not working against each other. You are working together. And then this is probably a traditional way of looking at it. I would sit down and be like, where are our strengths in terms of, okay, we've got relationships with Cosmo, Glamour, Daily Mail, and The Express. And then digital team say, okay, I've got an amazing contact at PA, and which is going to land a really nice syndication. Like, where is it that we can bring all this together in the easiest way possible without butting heads?
So I think my takeaway there would be that communication is key for you.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone just goes on to that call, like initial call, and it's always like fight to the death about who's going to be the best at this.
But do you think, not to be like really negative, I think it's changing anyway. I think there is a positive way. Like, I think even if you look at the language, even some of the digital people are using on LinkedIn, and like I said to you before we started, it's gone from links to brand awareness, brand building, like, and I think
it's harder to get links. So I think that's the way that the industry needs to go. I think there's some people that are still around that are very much trying to still push the spammy links. So yeah, highly agree. So we're going to move on to the next section of the podcast, which is where we talk about campaigns that we've seen recently or anything interesting with the community. Probably one of the biggest influencers at the moment, because she seems to be everywhere, and that's Alix Earle. And the reason she caught our eye is because she'd recently done a campaign with Pantene, and I think it was because I'm sure she went viral having like expired Pantene shampoo and conditioner.
What, she used it?
Yeah, on like a TikTok, because she's very well known for being like gross. I'm sure there was something about her putting a dress back and that sick all over it and stuff like that. So I think she was known for that, and then she's gone in with this campaign with Pantene, and it's called the Unexpiring Shampoo and Conditioner.
Yeah.
I can't remember why we picked this.
Do you not feel, because of our job there, I'm so sceptical that Pantene have set up her using an expired shampoo and conditioner to then make a campaign out of it?
I feel like from the global conversation at the moment, there's a lot about sustainability. Or the AI has kind of opened the door to, we're using too much water, we're using too many resources. So I think a collaboration is very much about don't bin usable products.
Yeah.
You know, make use of everything right down to the bottom. Because we all do it. I don't think I've ever thrown out a piece of makeup. Maybe the ones that go in my eyes.
Yeah.
Maybe mascara. But even that, it took a few years. I think
we were thinking about it from a point of view as using an influencer, like as this being, would that have been a good campaign? And as Alix Earle as a person, I think she's been doing a lot at the moment. There's been a lot of collaborations with brands and stuff that I would say I've not seen for a lot of influencers.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she's on another level with an influencer. Like, she's verging on celebrity.
Yeah, well, I think because of the Happy Gilmore thing as well, she's
Yeah.
that version. But I think it's probably also, I don't know what you guys think, I don't know what is on your For You page on TikTok, but like the clean girl aesthetic is in hard.
Yeah.
Like your Molly Mays of the world.
Yeah.
Like Alix Earle's quite a good opposing part. So like when she does something like that Pantene piece, it's really different to what other people are talking about. Whereas like I saw this week Lorna Lux, or like over the last couple of weeks, she started promoting she's released a hair mask, and it's very minimal, very clean. So I suppose like maybe there's that with Alix Earle, she's completely the right person to be having a different conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would probably edge more in the world of the Alix Earles of not a clean girl aesthetic. I'm called Type B a lot by my friend. But you know what I mean?
Type B.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still version of a type A, type B, I'd say. I'm fully type A.
If you were fully type A, you wouldn't like me. Like, I'm that level of type B.
Yeah, me too. My best friend Alice she's forever. Everywhere we go, because she's so embarrassed. Liv's so embarrassed. Oh, she's so type B. Like, as I'm like pulling out all the contents of my handbag to find something, like a full tote bag and a handbag that I bought today, because I haven't actually thought, I want that both in a minute.
I was so proud of myself today. I almost said to you when we arrived, I have brought everything I could possibly need today. And then I've just realised I've not bought clothes for tomorrow. So I'm wearing this home on the trip.
I also was really impressed that you had safety pins when I was it. That's big type A behaviour in my opinion. When you had safety pins, I was like,
pins.
I could never.
But then, so I've had this dress for like 8 years, sustainability, and you can see all the safety pin marks, like the historical one.
Yeah, but I was really that's big type A behaviour. I was like, I put a safety pin in this today, but only because like this is borderline really inappropriate. This jacket. But yeah, that's what I think. If that's what that campaign was about,
Do you think
it's quite clever.
from it's good for? Because honestly, I'd seen her at the premiere, and I was like, oh, she's just at the premiere. And then
Yeah.
I watched the film, and I was like, whoa, jump scare! Like, I was not expecting her to actually be in it. Is that good from a brand point of view to be in it, like something that doesn't correlate to her as a brand? Like Happy Gilmore, I would never associate with.
Doesn't Travis Kelce get painted with honey?
I read she did a feature with People magazine off the back of it and was like, oh, like now I've done this, like it's definitely more my calling to go into this. I think she was like, I absolutely can't sing, so I can't do that. I think there's like, I really do think there's two parts to this, because I think like it serves her a purpose in terms of like it's got her publicity, right? Like there's a perk of her being in it because she's also all the list of names that she's on, like Travis Kelce, like she's been put on a list of names. Yeah.
Global film.
But I think Netflix have done quite a good job because
It's getting a younger audience.
it's getting a younger audience, because that's reached to an audience that would be otherwise completely
Happy
or like
Gilmore was
not alive when that first
what 1998 when it came out?
Yeah.
And I know it because we used to religiously watch Adam Sandler films.
yeah
Me and my brother when we were younger.
Until they...
Seriously,
that's crazy.
have you ever watched Waterboy or anything like that?
I watched Waterboy with you when we were kids, and it was like one of Grandad's robbed copies, so it was kind of blue.
Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
I understand. That's such a good. That one's going home watching Drew Barrymore. It's really good.
Yeah.
But I think I think
It's just staying for me to TV.
Netflix have done a really, in my opinion, whether it is a conscious decision or not, that is such a good way to get that film out into the young audience.
Well, I mean, it must have paid off in some way that all these cameos and things like that, because it's the top performing film, I think, that
Yeah,
released as an original. So
that was my takeaway on it. But then again, like, just think I'm so skeptical because of my job. Maybe it was just a really great cameo to the film. But I feel like Netflix, most of the people that probably like Alix Earle weren't alive when the first one came out, so they had no reason to watch it. I don't know. Like,
I think that's probably why they've done all those cameos, because there's like Bad Bunny.
yeah.
I do think it was a very clever tactic.
I have to watch it now. Do I have to watch the first one?
Yeah, you have to watch the first one.